Well, Zal, we find ourselves at episode 11, and this one is kind of a short gap between the last one and this one. What do you think?
I think it seems like we just did the other one yesterday.
It does. I think there's been a couple days have gone by, but it is weird how just kind of doing that one late it's made this one seem like, man, we do these all the time all of a sudden.
Man, we're going to start doing them more.
We are. And so tonight I think we have a great show. I mean, there's a lot of information that dropped kind of late today. And so there's kind of the Roadmap Roundup and the Progress Tracker and the monthly report. And all that stuff just kind of fell into our lap as the evening has kind of pressed on. And so we have been looking at that stuff a little bit. And of course, those are things that we probably are going to cover, in some detail. But we also have some other things planned as well tonight. So hopefully we don't run terribly long.
Yeah. The subject tonight is what's your dream planet?
Yeah, that's a really interesting exercise in what if, really, quite honestly.
Well, did you have any time to think about what your dream planet would be?
I did actually spend a little time thinking about what my dream planet would be, and I am excited to kind of chat about that a little bit later. Now, it's probably not a bridge too far from where most people would think I'd wind up, but that being said, I actually did put a little thought into it, and we'll see how it pans out. But I suppose before we get to any of that stuff, we've got to take care of business, right?
Into the news.
Yeah. And
what's the news of the day?
Yeah. And maybe even before that, Zel, if you wouldn't mind leading us into the old, what's that stuff we want to try and remember to do?
If you guys like what you hear,
yeah,
make sure you hit that thumbs up button, press the subscribe, and make sure that you guys get down in the comments and give us some feedback and, tell us if we're doing a good job and, tell us what we can improve on. And, if you really don't want to get into a big, long diatribe about, what could be better, then just give us a thumbs up or give us a thumbs down or give us your favorite little emoji, man. Give us a smiley face. Just let us know that you guys are, digging what you hear.
That is the truth right there. And we really did get some excellent comments on this last podcast. And just for those of you who reached out and did comment, I just want to say thank you. That was, it meant a lot that you guys were listening. And I understand it was, a little bit rougher than they normally go, in the sense that there was just a lot going on that was kind of hectic in the community. And so, I'm ready to turn the corner and do something a little more, based in what could be instead of kind of the harsh reality of what is, And so, with that being said, though, let's dive into the Roadmap Roundup. I think that there's, it is the 3rd of August, and the Roadmap Roundup came out today. Like I said, the Progress Tracker was updated today, and the monthly report dropped today. So, we got a lot of ground to cover, and we'll kind of just talk about some items that were added to the release view for 3.18. And the first one on the list is a Daymar crash site, a derelict settlement on Daymar using parts of the Star Runner and the 600i, as well as some HABs adapted to the biome to create a point of interest with some type of activity, puzzle, traversal, hostile AI missions, that type of thing, as well as rewards for completion. What do you think about that, Sal? Daymar?
Well, yeah. I'm glad they're kind of moving them around a little bit and getting them off Microtech. It's cool to see that, they're adding all these, different POIs to all these different planets. The 600i for sure could definitely be a settlement. And it's interesting to see, and I'm pretty sure they're going to probably go through a bunch of different other, ship types. But, I don't know if the Star Runner's big enough to, you know, be a derelict settlement site. I guess at some point, I guess it could be. It's got its, it's got 3 beds, some hab areas, has an entertainment area, has a pretty good, cargo bay. So I guess you could, if you were to crash on a planet, was having a rough time getting off of it, waiting for a rescue, I guess you could do worse than using a Star Runner for shelter.
Yeah, you might. What if you had a Pisces or a 135C?
Be kind of cramped quarters for a lot of.
It would. I mean, the Star. I agree. I think it is interesting. The Star Runner is an interesting size to be used for, for a point of interest. That being said, it sounds like it really almost sounds like they're going to kind of mix and match, like they're saying, using the parts from a Star Runner and a 600i in this particular case. So it almost seems like maybe a couple of ships that have been kind of dragged close to each other to serve as some kind of shelters, or maybe some makeshift shops or something along those lines. It will be really interesting to see how they work that the two different types of ships, into one kind of hab area.
Well, I most definitely could see puzzles and different traversal options for the 600i.
Absolutely.
I don't know if the Star Runner is big enough to. I guess it could be, honestly. To try to have different jump points, kind of jump, those have little jump games where you try to get on top of it.
Oh, the parkour games, yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
So I could see that. I could also see a little bit of, if the door from the elevator from the cargo hull is blocked, say there's like some debris there and you can't get up that way, possibly going through the smuggler area on the Star Runner to kind of get around and then get up and get into the interior of the ship. I can see that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. So the next item on the list is, we actually spoke to this, actually. We spoke to the fact that the, in the last podcast, we talked about how we were kind of excited about the river tech a little bit, and it looks like they are going to take advantage of that river pipeline. They have a new river in Stanton coming up, setting up biome-specific object rule sets around bodies of water and distributing those by placing additional rivers and lakes on Microtech and Hurston. So, they seem to really be kind of doing a lot with Microtech and Hurston. But, I understand. I think that you have, with Area 18, I think you kind of have its challenges because it's all city. Of course, Crusader has its challenges. And then a lot of the other biomes are kind of really icy or very dry. So it does seem like Microtech and Hurston are the places that are destined to get those rivers and lakes, at least in the interim.
Yeah, the new river tech, the new toolkit that they put out was very interesting.
Cool.
I really dug that. One of the things that was on the progress tracker was them building new shaders for oceans and water types.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start seeing more and more realistic looking bodies of water, which I'm pretty excited to see.
Or potentially other forms of liquid. So yeah, you're absolutely
that's true.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be water. It could be liquid methane, or
yeah. Well, how amazing would that be?
Or some other, some other liquid types. It'd be pretty interesting.
And I do know that of course, lava flows and pyro is another thing that we're going to be able to see, kind of rivers of lava or those types of things on some of those places. So, just different, certainly different, a lot of diversity depending on the biome in that particular case.
Oh, what's going to be pretty wild is how they segue that those tool types into, as like those new river tools, basically kind of randomize the, how the river looks, so it puts bends and, different things in it. What's going to be interesting is trying to take that tech and then stretching it over and where it becomes a road builder.
Yes, and that's exactly the natural extension to that. I agree with you 100%. Would be some kind of a road type building system, and I bet you that those things are going to be heavily interlaced.
Yeah, as the river tech is more procedural, this road tech is going to have to be a little bit more deliberate. So when they, program in the road tech, it's, going from, point A to point B, and then how to move around the terrain, and also, keep the road as straight as possible, but, being able to move around, kind of big rocks or
potentially mountain passes and that type of stuff. Yeah,
some sort of like gorges, or does the thing sort of like in some RTS games where you lay a road down. Usually all these things are kind of based on a grid. But when you lay a road down across a river or a gorge, or, from a plateau, it'll, also create the bridge as you stretch the road across. Is it going to be one of those situations where they build that into the tech where the road will lay itself out, and if it has to go over certain objects that like these plateaus or gorges or rivers, where it'll also build a bridge as it goes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Is it going to terraform the land, or is it going to have, like you said, some other kind of some other use cases where like bridges or or any kind of some of these crossing type things may exist? I think that's a really interesting concept for sure.
Well, as the river tech, the way they kind of laid the river tech out, they laid it out in the algorithms where it goes through a kind of a checklist. Does it go through a base? Does it go through, does it go through a mountainside? Does it, is the terrain, is it on a downgrade? That type of thing where you got to meet all these different parameters before it decides its placement of the rivers. So,
right.
In this situation where you have the roads, that you're going to want this road to go from this outpost to this other outpost. So, do we lay it out as the crow flies? Is there, any other natural obstacle in the way that's going to keep the road from, going in that direction? Or, like you said, is it going to be a situation where it becomes terraformed is the hill that's in between the two bases, is it too high? Are you,
right.
Kind of like how you do road work here, like in the real world, where, you kind of carve your way through a hillside, so is it going to be one of those situations where it just kind of, creates a pass as you go through the hill instead of over the hill? So
yeah,
it's going to be cool to see how they work all that out.
It is going to be cool. The next item is something I've got to be honest with you. I was racking my brain when I read this, and I don't ever remember there being like, and it probably is just something I missed, but I don't remember there being specific cave archetype. So this next item, they say sand cave archetype, establishing the visual language, creation pipeline, and quality standard for a new sand cave archetype. With this release, cave networks using this archetype will be placed throughout the Stanton system. So that's pretty amazing. There's going to be this, some kind of a cave system potentially. I remember when they showed like the ships kind of going into caves and then really kind of flying around in very, very long caves, and when they implemented caves, I mean, you could kind of fly ships in there, but not in the way that I had seen in some of the, some of the demonstrations or, kind of the pre-modeling they were doing. So, this almost sounds like this is more to me because they say it's a sand cave archetype, that it maybe isn't as much ship-based as it might be kind of on foot-based, but, I'm just kind of guessing in that particular case.
Well, I'd seen some of the concept art for, I guess, what they would be considering a sand archetype. Mm-hmm. So, where it does have that very sandstone look to it. That was one of the concept arts where you we're seeing. There was also another one where some people, some guys were rappelling down into the thing, and it had more natural light that also kind of was kind of shining the way in certain areas. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how all that plays out. But, more diverse caves, bigger cave systems, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is interesting. It seems like I read not terribly long ago that, like, for instance, on Earth, the percentage of caves that were mapped it's tiny. It's just like there's a huge cave network, kind of on our own planet that hasn't been, necessarily, fully spelunked. And so, it was a very small percentage of the caves on Earth have been mapped. And so, yeah, it's interesting to me that, that they would use the word cave networks. That very well, that could be really cool. There could be quite a bit of real estate down there.
Well, also too is, things that something that we kind of saw that was, still on the roadmap, and they had been working on it for quite a little while, was, the base building tech. Mm-hmm. And, how cool would it be if you had a cave system big enough to build bases inside of?
Oh, yeah, I agree with that 100%. Or even if, there were bases that were close enough to each other that were connected via cave system, that would be really fantastic as well. And potentially would allow you to, maybe have some protection from air at that point. If you could kind of, reinforce a cave system with and kind of hunker down.
Well, I guess it depends on if, those areas are going to be buildable. The way they've been using caves, lately is that they're points of interest. So, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to want you to be building inside their points of interest. Stanton's probably one thing, but take a system kind of far removed from the action, so to speak, and so when some of these planets become procedurally generated, maybe all that caves and rivers and oceans and all these different things will be kind of baked into the cake. So there may be some of these kind of far off distant planets or worlds that you want to settle on, actually has a cave system in it where you could build. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited for those prospects, because you're right. It gives you a natural protection, gives you choke points to defend against if you have people trying to get into your cave. So definitely easier defensive wise.
Yeah. So the next one is actually really kind of interesting to me. It's the Arena Commander Classic Race Mode Overhaul. And you and I had spoken, about how we love it when CIG kind of recognizes kind of some organic player stuff, and they kind of have an homage to that in here. So it says a complete overhaul of all systems and maps in Arena Commander's Classic Race Mode. So all of the maps, in Arena Commander's Classic Race Mode are getting an overhaul. Improvements include a complete refactor of checkpoint, entity, and race manager systems. Improvements to scoring. A complete rework of all 3 Horizon Speedway maps, as well as the new map, the Snake Pit. So that's cool. I like that.
I like to see that they actually added that.
Yeah, it's cool.
To Arena Commander. That's awesome. Something that was developed organically by the players, and CIG recognizing it. I really like to see that.
Yeah, they've seemed to embrace that, and those are definitely the types of things that that make the game special when they do that type of thing for sure. So, next one on the list: Sandbox Prison Activities, expansion of prison gameplay with a new suite of missions and sandbox activities to give inmates more opportunities to earn merits or to aid in their escape from prison. So yeah, some more. Looks like they're going to kind of the old prison gameplay loop is going to get some more stuff.
Well, yeah, I like to see that they're adding sandbox to the prison. Gives you something to do while you're waiting your sentence out. You can bring your army men in and get in the sandbox and play.
Yeah, your trucks and push dirt.
Yeah, get your Tonka trucks.
Yeah, exactly. Love those.
Yeah. I need to think about this one for a second. Now I think it's cool, the whole escaping from prison bit. And the idea of adding more activities to earn merits. So that would be kind of, I'd like to see where they're going with that. Because, one of the things that once you cross through those doors into those tunnels, you have no protections anymore. So when people do the kind of do the oxygen missions and things like that, people are hauling butt through there trying to get them, completed as quickly as possible and also staying on the move. Because you don't want to be caught out mining in those tunnels, because people are just going to bum rush you if they see you standing still and you're not paying attention. People are just going to...
You're going to get shanked.
Yes, yeah. Trust me, I was messing around in there one day, just kind of goofing around, and a group of, I guess they all went to prison at the same time, and a group kind of came up on me and tried to give me the beat down, but, luckily, had the mining tool on me as well. So, yeah, I caught the beat down. So, and then I tried to catch up with them down the tunnels again. Never could find them. So.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time in the prisons, I kind of got in this kind of a bit of a battle with a guy, and we ended up kind of going our separate ways. We didn't get each other, and then all of a sudden, like, he came back in the cave, and he was like fully kitted with like guns and armor, and he just shot me. So I said to him later, I'm like, what the heck? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I left prison, but I respawned back in. When I left, I respawned back in with all my stuff. so he just kind of came and got even with me. So.
Could you imagine? If you just really wanted to do something different, and
Break in.
Break into prison instead of escaping from prison. So
Just kind of go on a prison extermination. Yeah, that's crazy.
you roll in and take everybody in the prison out. Yeah.
So this next one is kind of interesting. Security Post Korea reactivation. Security Post Korea will be taking a more central role in Stanton security. Crusader Security has moved in a full-time staff and have begun storing confiscated contraband aboard. That's really interesting. So things that are confiscated are going to be on Korea. The station will be off limits to all civilians unless given prior authorization. So it does make me wonder, like, if things are confiscated from, like, stolen goods are confiscated from. Are you going to find that stuff in a loot box there?
Yeah,
That's
what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool. There's a lot of inside Korea they have a lot of crates on big pallets and
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So maybe those are I guess the assets for the confiscated goods. So maybe if you're a smuggler type and want to steal stolen goods from the securities lockup, then yeah, I could see that actually being kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. I could see people trying to sneak on there all the time and acquiring and trying to acquire some of that confiscated contraband.
And just pallets of mace or
Nays or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, maize. Yeah. It was a pretty good place to get loot when you go.
I like Korea. I mean, I think it's always fun to kind of stash your ship and EVA up in, and I've enjoyed the times we've messed around Security Post Korea for sure.
There were the in the very last half of that patch where the security forces never spawned. So
yeah, that's true. All right, there's some new missions around Orison: Bounty, Assassinate, Clear All, and other missions to take place on the platforms created for the Siege of Orison, which in the future will be distributed across the planet of Crusader to create further content. So it just looks like they're gonna, they built some more stuff around Orison, and it looks like they're gonna have some more missions around it to, you might as well have access to those other platforms and those areas because they're huge, they're extensive, while you're not necessarily doing the the Siege of Orison, those areas are going to have some use cases.
Well, the one line that I find intriguing is the will be distributed across the planet of Crusader, not necessarily Orison, but the planet. How far are they talking about? Are they going to start making other points of interest on Crusader except for Orison?
Yeah, it does make you wonder if maybe there's like maybe a cloud layer that's really dense, and in there will be kind of a hidden, floating,
how far are they taking all the different platforms?
Yeah, like a hidden platform or something, or kind of, yeah, that's exactly right. That's kind of cool.
Are they going to start creating these, different security areas and, different, maybe places to pick up cargo?
Yeah, some off the books platforms or something.
Research centers, all these different things. So they're going to start fleshing Crusader out a little bit more. That's what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, it does.
It'd be great to see.
For sure.
Having more than just one place to go on Crusader.
Yeah.
Not that it would be all that appealing, considering that it takes you 20 minutes to get out of that map.
I have a feeling who knows how that will work out in the future, but it is one of the interesting things that people say about it a lot. So It does. I do wonder if there's not going to be some kind of a quantum solution for that, where you can spool up and get out of there, hit an OM or something. But
Well, like I've spoken in the past, I do like the idea of distance giving weight and considerations, and if Crusader is supposed to be this big gas giant, but it's actually the size of it's supposed to be accurately the size of Earth the way it is now, but it being a gaseous planet, it has a certain it's supposed to have a certain density to it, I guess, or lack of density, where the atmosphere is definitely, because when you go to places like fairly decent sized planets like Microtech, it doesn't take you very long at all to get out of Atmo. It's what, like,
well, some of them have like a
7,000 or 8,000 kilometers, and like on places like Lyria, it's like 1,500 kilometers.
Yeah,
it's like
maybe
you're
2,000.
basically out of Atmo in no time. So I do like that. It gives you a sense of more realistic, what it would actually take to
It's
get out of
variable.
Atmo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe there won't be many like Orison. Maybe it's just how it is, and that would be okay. I know it takes a while to get in and out of there, but if that's just the way it is, I'm okay with it, honestly.
If you left Earth's atmosphere, besides being in a rocket moving at 26,000 miles per hour, it takes you quite a while to leave Earth's atmosphere, realistically. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, is it a little inconvenient? And yeah, is this a game? And do you kind of have to jug realism over, gameplay quality of life? Yeah, you do. I guess, you don't want to make things too extraneous that...
It's not fun.
And it's true.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. We were kind of laughing the other day when we were talking about, kind of getting ready after the patch hit and, going and buying ships and equipment and things like that. And we were kind of laughing. Like I said, yeah, I had to make my shopping list for Cousin Crows because I didn't want to come back.
Yep.
So I spent like, 2 million credits on ship parts, just buying a whole crap load of stuff and loading up the Taurus, so I didn't have to come back. So yeah, in a way, I guess it kind of is a little bit of a pain in the butt. But then again, I feel like Crusader being the only one that's like that right now is okay. Like I said, it diversifies the different planets, and I believe that it shouldn't be that easy, just leaving Atmo and all these different other places. So yeah, I think it's cool that way, to be honest, although it can kind of be a pain in the butt. But
yeah, well, it's definitely a long haul in and out of there, but if there's a few planets like that and it's rare, yeah.
I mean, and if they add more to Crusader, they start adding these platforms, around the planet to give, to give you different gameplay options, then, maybe it'll be a little bit more appealing for people to go down, further onto the planet. So
yeah, cool. All right, there's new interdiction scenarios, so adding new variations and difficulty levels of interdiction scenarios that players will come across while quantum traveling. So sounds like you're getting yanked out of quantum, maybe in a little bit larger variety of ways.
Well, talk about this every time we talk about interdiction is, for every action, there needs to be an equal and opposite reaction. So with the idea of being able to interdict people, there should also be a way to, counter that as well. These are the things that haven't been brought up, is how do you counter interdiction? Because, for something like that, just like, any other gameplay, any other game that you would play, when you get stunned or stun locked, there should be a way to counteract that as well. So where you, have perfect timing and, like I've said before, something like where you're going into an area that you're going to be interdicted, or you get interdicted. So you go through this like quick process and you shut everything down and hit your EMP or something that knocks out the quantum dampener, and being able to fire your engines back up and take off. But you have that small limited window that you can pull it off. So
yeah, something skill-based, exactly, to counter it. I think that's exactly right. The other thing that comes to mind with this is that, of course, with more Quanta running around at some point, some of those Quanta are going to be pirates. So having some variations in the way that you're going to be interdicted is, kind of par for the course. Based on probability volumes, I'm sure.
What's funny about those pirates currently is if you get interdicted, they seem to, if you, give them chase, they seem like they turn it off. It gives you an opportunity to quantum out of there. So, yeah. But yeah, we'd like to see where they're kind of going with this new interdiction scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple more items on the Roadmap Roundup. Environmental space missions, implementation of new missions and scenarios that the player will encounter as they wander around an area of space. The missions that appear will be based on probability volumes that the player is currently in. So,
now,
yeah, this is interesting.
This is what we've been wanting to see.
Yes.
It has a lot of different gameplay implications, salvage being one of them. Going and being able to loot these particular, say it was a situation where our cargo ship had a catastrophic failure, or they were attacked by pirates and they went adrift. Being able to go in and loot the contents or salvage the contents. There's a lot of different things you could do. Having where you go in and you find one of the cool gameplay. If it's kind of if it isn't mission based, that it has maybe some documents in there that once you open them and read them, it actually starts a mission, and then you have to go. It's either a go and find mission, or it's the you have to take particular disk back to one of the security forces, or there's a lot of things you can do with that.
Yeah, there is a ton of things you can do with it. Just a variety of anything, any kind of, like you were saying, salvage. There's a lot of derelict stuff, involved in that, and certainly a lot of, a lot of search and rescue. There's
search and rescue.
Yeah, there's just a ton of options there. From anything from just like a broken down ship to that needs just kind of a somebody to come on there, maybe repair. From an engineering standpoint, maybe you just go in and help them repair their quantum drive, or or whatever. So there's a lot of potential options for for that, and you know, it's probably they're laying the groundwork for those for the different types of missions that they could do later.
Well, the one big thing that we talked about that we're looking forward to in the future is especially when we're dealing with procedurally generated shipwrecks and derelicts and things, is like finding old technology or
alien technology,
or like a shot up bangle or something that we tow in and repair. These things actually, the asset is is a fully functioning asset where you could repair it, replace its components, and actually use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just going to be fascinating. I mean, if there are like Polarises or anything that's like a Javelin or any of those types, decent sized ships that have been in some kind of a battle, maybe finding one that's salvageable, like you said, to the point where there's enough of the hull structure there where you could actually pull that thing off and maybe move it in some kind of a space dock and just begin repairing it. And then all of a sudden you're just like, man, this thing would work if I only had the Javelin shield generator, type of thing, or whatever, like I can't find the power plant that's it's just like, oh, well, hey, we happen to know that this one guy, the salvage guy, a couple of systems away has a couple of those. You know what I mean? Holy smokes, is that going to be fun?
Yeah, that's actually, if you find unique items like that, where, we've spoken before, is how could you pull off gameplay like in the, in the Kraken or the Banu Merchantman, where you have these, basically these bazaars, these movable bazaars where, these people buy really unique items that you can't get anywhere else. None of that stuff you can build off, buy off the shelf. It has to be found. So, and, where these things are so random and rare that only a few people are going to run across them, at any one time. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out.
We will. And finally,
that's what.
Oh, go ahead.
Just one more thing is the actual exploring gameplay. That'll kick that into overdrive as well, where people are, actually actively looking for things like that. So.
Well, and that's an amazing, yeah, exactly. That's where that's where exploration will really shine, right? Let's say you're just kind of out there just pinging and pinging and pinging, and these, however it is, maybe you're sending out deep space probes, or maybe you have some kind of a focused scan, and all of a sudden it's just like, hey, I've got a blip out here in really what should be nothing, and then sure enough you pull up there, and it's it's maybe some kind of a like a rogue shipyard or something, and they've got a bunch of just kind of junk ships that they're working on there, or who knows? I mean, exactly, the environmental space mission thing, and is really kind of just a fledgling placeholder for an enormous amount of different gameplay, including the exploration gameplay loop. That's a very good point. Fun. So cool. Moving on to salvage. Now, this didn't necessarily surprise me that much reading it, because hull stripping we know is coming in 3.18. They say previously, the initial release of hull stripping feature was limited to FPS and the Drake Vulture, and that's kind of when they atomized, kind of like old hull, you strip a whole hull, and I'm assuming that what it does in that situation is it gives you collect some kind of a material where you can then repair a hull. So this is being updated to also include hull stripping aboard the Aegis Reclaimer, using its remote salvage turrets. Therefore, this card, the card's description has been updated to reflect this. Now, I haven't really looked at those. Maybe you were in those, Zel, the remote salvage turrets. I haven't been in those, but I would imagine that thing that's going to be probably significantly faster than FPS or the Vulture, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, those on the sides of the reclaimer, um, those things are huge. So
So you might be taking a large strip of of
well,
someone.
I did. We had seen, I guess, in the past where they were talking about in the past month or two when they were going to add the reclaimer to that as well, is they're going to start bringing the functionality of the reclaimer back online. I don't know if we're going to have the big grabby claw, if it's going to work, at this iteration. But yeah, I'm glad to see at least some of the reclaimer is going to be functional, because as fun as the reclaimer is, and I love that ship, I really do. It's one of my faves. Is actually seeing it start working is going to be a highlight for me.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to believe there would be some level of salvage in the game, and the reclaimer wouldn't have its hand in it. So it is nice to see that they've kind of they've got that organized, and like I said, it will be very interesting to see if there is obviously the the handheld device versus the vulture versus the reclaimer, if there is going to be this kind of natural progression of how much and how fast they can atomize hull or repair, obviously in the second part of it when the repair part comes. Now I know these are just they're just going to collect the kind of the resource that you use to repair. But I mean, how fast? Maybe the reclaimer is going to be incredibly fast at collecting that stuff. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'd like to see how big the beams. We kind of saw how big the, what kind of in those, where they were showing off the vulture, and what those beams look like from the vulture. It's going to be interesting to see how big. How big those beams are from the reclaimer, where you can just take off large swaths of hull with those guys, and how it's going to be collected. And we had seen that there's going to be where the raw material will be used in limited repair. But what else? What else is it going to be good for? Is it, something that we could take to the refinery and it gets broken down into its base parts, or, something you can make a little bit of money on? Are they going to have, missions along with the salvage? So, where you go out and have to strip the hull of a caterpillar, or strip the hull of, bigger ships, where you go and turn it in at the junkyard place and get paid for it. We'll see how if they've got accompanying missions along with what they have in store for salvage in this salvage one, where basically all you can do is hull strip.
Right.
So we'll see what all you can do with that material.
All right. Well, that's the Roadmap Roundup. And so, and like I mentioned earlier, kind of the Roadmap Roundup, we had the progress tracker update and then the monthly report. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the progress tracker? I don't know that there's a ton of things we want to mention here, but there's definitely a couple of things that I thought would be worth mentioning. And then, of course, you actually kind of, as we were looking at this, made a couple mentions, for instance, on the Bandu Merchantman and a couple of other things. So, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about kind of the progress tracker updates a little bit.
All right, brother.
So, one of the things, and I don't. Zel and I have looked at this a little bit, and we don't. I'm just going to mention it just because they say it here. And it very well could be that we just don't understand exactly the moving parts, but they do mention that persistent streaming and server meshing work is removed for deliverables. Now, I don't want to necessarily get out there and say that this, I really want to see how that kind of pans out to see exactly what that means. It may just mean that maybe one sprint came to an end and another sprint's going to start, type of thing. But yeah, that was definitely one thing that caught my eye in the progress tracker.
Well, it says, with the undeliverable updates with the persistent streaming and server meshing, the work was removed. But, you can kind of do some deeper dives and kind of get a little bit of the idea, because we know that for the network team, persistent streaming and server meshing is ongoing into December. And then we have the replication layer and the entity authority, which is a big part of persistence, and it will be done in mid-September. So with a lot of these things that we've been looking at, especially for things that that we've been told that's going to be delivered in 3.18, and then you go into the persistent tech team, and the one big thing that they're working on is the persistent streaming and server meshing, and that's going to continue on through December. Now we know a lot of these, a lot of the server tech features that first real iterations of it are coming in 3.18, and they're going to be ongoing from there. This is the with what they're trying to deliver in 3.18 with the persistent entity streaming and the server meshing for 3.18. We know that's going to be coming in, October, November, and we know that it's going to continue on from there. They're going to be adding to it as they go along. So you see this one sprint, for persistent streaming and server meshing is ongoing until December. Same thing in the network team as well. So, all these things are, part and parcel to the other. So a lot of these are going to be completed in December. But, the replication layer, what's pretty interesting is that seems like it's going to be right on time for its completion in September, ready to go for testing for 3.18. So we'll have to see how that goes. Same thing with the DGS mesh nodes and the crash recovery. That's also a big, one of the things in the server that we've been looking forward to is getting rid of the 30Ks, and then DGS for everybody, it's the dedicated game server. So when you have a crash, basically the game engine will spin back up a replacement and restore everything to its original state. So if you did have a crash, you'll no longer 30K out. Basically, it'll kind of pick it up and go along from where that one particular area crashed over on you, and that way you can continue on. And a lot of that should be, whether it crashes the desktop or, it's a crash on the back end, but you never notice it because, another layer picks it up. So, all these things will be done in September.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that is kind of a, an important milestone, I think, to hit, for some of the backfill that needs to be done for, for some of the things that we're expecting to kind of come out with 3.18. So one of the cool things about the, as I've looked over the progress tracker, is there's this great key at the bottom of it. And there's a lot of items on the progress tracker. And so you have like added deliverables or removed deliverables. One of the things I want to say right off the bat, I don't see any removed deliverables. There were some updated deliverables, and then there was deliverables that were actively being worked on. Another cool thing is it does talk about, is there are these symbols next to a lot of these line items. Like, is it for the PU or for Squadron 42? But the thing that's caught my eye the most is, say, for instance, there's a green kind of like an up pointing arrow, and those are the things that they have increased the active developers on. So since the last update, since the last time the progress tracker has been updated, if a line item has a green kind of triangle, that that means that they've increased the amount of devs. And so one of the things that stands out right off the bat, of course, is jump points. For instance, has got now 6 active devs, and that seems to have increased. As well as map and radar systems have increased to 7 active devs. MFD rework is 9 active devs. And so there's some cool, and one of the things here, Outpost Homestead, Independent, and Outlaw are 17 active devs. So, and it's increased. So if they're working on jump points and they're working on Outpost Homesteads,
that is definitely pyro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It's not a long line to draw, right? You can see that they're working on pyro. The one though, Zel, and I don't want to steal your thunder here, is with the Banu. I mean, that actually turned my head, the number there, and I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, 20 devs that they've got actively working on it. Last we saw during Alien Week, they kind of brought it up a little bit, where there was only 2 people working on it. So now they've increased it to 20 active devs, which we surmise that they're going to want to start putting this into the game pretty soon, trying to get it done and dusted, and at least, I don't know if it'll be CitizenCon or, IE or something, or, at least have it ready for some time for when Pyro goes live.
Yeah.
That would be probably the one, considering they were still kind of in the gray box, white box phase for the merchantman last we saw it, which was, a couple of months ago. Of course, them adding 20 devs to it, it definitely looks like they're trying to get it knocked out pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, when Zel pointed that out, I kind of started looking around at some of the other line items and how many devs that they have active on, and there certainly are other areas where they have kind of very generic, like miscellaneous support has 58 active devs or whatever. But there's no other ship that it seems like they've got 20 active devs working on. So I would agree 100%. It does look like they are going to try and push the Banu merchantman. They're definitely trying to get it, to get it to the finish line. And so
we know, we know the SRV, is coming pretty soon, and they've got 5 devs working on it.
Right.
Which was the same that they had last month as well. So there's been no change on it. So they're actively trying to get that thing out the door, because 318 was when they said it was coming, or thought it was coming. So that just kind of gives you kind of an idea of them adding all those extra devs to the merchantman. They're definitely trying to get it out the door, in the next 4 or 5 months. Well, that many.
That's a lot of devs. I
would say the next, if it isn't,
I think that might be coming in IAE, man. That is a lot of developers all of a sudden on that, and it just seems that maybe they're just trying to get her over the finish line.
Oh, I agree, man. If it isn't IAE, it is most definitely Pyro when it's coming.
Yes.
So.
One other honorable mention I thought I would say is the RSI Apollo has 5 active devs, which is an increase. So, I don't know how far. I honestly don't know how far along those ships were, but the that's a ship that I think could really have could really have a lot of fun gameplay. Is both of the Triage and the Apollo, and it's nice to see those starting to get some love.
Well, you can definitely see that they're gearing up for Pyro because Frontier Clothing has 17 devs.
Oh, that's right. We did catch that. Frontier Clothing has 17 devs. Yeah, so, jump points, and actually Pyro space stations have 19 active devs. Pyro system plan and admission setup only has 1 there. But there was, jump points we mentioned, and of course, there's a ton of Pyro work being done. Independent and Outlaw Homesteads had 17 active devs increased. So they're pushing Pyro hard.
Yeah, one of the things that we saw on the tracker was the Atlas development tool, where that was kind of the first iteration of the building tool. And they're going to have it done pretty soon. So building may not be too far in the future. At least, hey, we may see that sometime mid next year.
The one thing that's a little surprising to me is the cargo system refactor. They say has 3 active devs. That seems like a.
A lot of this stuff they will be winding down because
that very well could be the case.
They're going to have to start wrapping it up to at least start testing. So when, we think that Evocati is going to be within the next 2 weeks, the starting of Evocati.
That's going to be crazy.
Because I know they're really trying to keep to their timelines a little bit. I know a lot of this has kind of been overshot, I hear. And, for 318, we were previously looking at, it was supposed to be, sometime late September. Now we're looking at, late October. And if we're to be realistic, November. So I think they're going to want to start testing that pretty quick. Salvage was the same thing. They decreased the amount of devs on salvage, but there's still 10 devs working on salvage. So
interesting.
We know that is one big thing. There's another thing too, looking, for a lot of people that have been, wondering where the Corsair is. Well, they decreased the amount of devs on the Corsair, so they feel like they got a pretty good handle on it. They got 6 left on it, and we knew that was probably going to be released either prior to Pyro or during Pyro. So,
right.
You can actually start gleaning a little bit of information when you start, seeing how many devs are working on a particular thing, and did they increase the amount of devs or did they decrease the amount of devs? Usually when you start seeing them decrease the amount of devs that are working on a project, that means that they're pretty close to completion.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So a lot of this is pretty encouraging for like the Mobiglass rework. There's 1 active dev left on it, and I'm pretty sure they're doing polish work because it was decreased from last month. So they're doing polish work on it. So
things are happening. I mean, I think there's
maybe the
cool
the map, the new Mobiglass will be coming sooner than we thought.
That would be fantastic.
So,
all right,
a lot of this is, very encouraging.
Any other honorable mentions for you on the progress tracker?
A lot of the stuff that, we've been waiting on. FPS radar, that's a big one. A lot of people have been wanting it. Went over the Corsair, we went over the the Merchantman. There's a lot of great stuff in here. It's all, just about all of this stuff is, stuff that we've been, looking forward to. But, we are seeing the little clues that show that they're really pushing for the end of the year. They're really pushing Pyro.
They really are pushing Pyro.
Yeah, Pyro space stations. There's 19 devs on it.
Yep. Like we talked about the Frontier close and all that stuff. Yeah, they are really, really, they're really pushing it.
Yep, the Homestead Outposts, 17 devs on it. So, yeah, they're really pushing towards Pyro, and we're gonna see Pyro sometime first couple weeks of January.
Oh wow! You heard it here. Zel's been pretty accurate. And it's so funny. I have it more around April of, in my mind, sometime around April of this next year or so. But Zel's been, he's definitely been, much more accurate than me on these predictions. So, it will be interesting.
I can say this: we'll definitely see how 318 shakes out, and once 318 shakes out, then we'll
have a barometer. Yep.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a better idea of how long Pyro's out. So.
All right, well, we're going to move on to the monthly report. Now, here's the one mistake we're not going to make with the monthly report this time, and that's read it word for word. Zel and I have kind of a bullet pointed feed that I think is probably really going to speak to most of what we want to speak to with this. But yeah, I think, we do want to cover the monthly report, but we certainly don't want to, run 3 hours on the podcast either. So, we're going to buzz through some of these things, Zal, if you're up for it, and we'll try and, not get off too much in the weeds like we do, but, of course, if the conversation warrants it, then off we go, right?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right. So, of course, it's important to understand that the monthly report is this very, very big kind of, where they really talk about all the different teams and what they're up to, right? So, first of all, you have the AI content team, and really what they focused on was content dedicated. The content team, they dedicated time to bug fixing existing features. I bet you there was a ton of that. They continued implementing dynamic conversations feature, and AI engineers seek out colleagues at work zones to start conversations. So it's interesting. They really are starting to kind of build out the dynamic dialogue for some of the AI. And you and I spoke about kind of how critical the AI is. AI engineers seek out colleagues at work zones to start conversations. It's very interesting that an AI, like an engineer, may recognize another engineer or a peer, and then begin some kind of a conversation based on like a set amount of dialogue that they would share between themselves because they have a specific thing that they both kind of share, as a duty in the game. That's really neat.
Well, that's also parts of those layers of immersion.
Yes.
Seeing the NPCs do something other than standing on tabletops and staring at walls, where they actually, start looking a little bit more realistic and behaving a little bit more realistic, and then having the NPCs walk up to each other and basically just sit there and say rutabaga, rutabaga, rutabaga.
With the T-pose.
Yeah, it was that thing. It's like back in the early days of movie making, to give people where it sounds like people are having conversations in the background. They used to just have people just sit there and say rutabaga, rutabaga, rutabaga over again, each other. So it sounded like they were having a conversation. So looks like that's the same thing that that the devs are doing with the engineers.
Yeah. Now moving on to the AI team, like kind of right up our alley, right? This is the AI for features and vehicles. New design for AI perception, where a meter rises depending on different stimuli such as footsteps, gunfire, visualizing target, and scales depending on severity. So yeah, it sounds to me like there's going to be some, just basically like what is going to be the bubble at which maybe you're going to get some AI's attention, and that's very interesting. Work started on the investigation behavior, allowing NPCs to determine potential enemy hiding spots and keep track of what they've seen. So that's kind of cool. Like if one of them kind of sees you but runs past you to get somebody else who maybe they have a more, they're more angry at. Let's say somebody shot at them, and then they're chasing that person, but as they chase that person, they see you. That after they kind of maybe finish that engagement, they may pivot back to you because they had seen you there, so they remember. That's
a lot of
fantastic.
This also is sneaking behavior.
Yeah,
it's sort of like in games that we've seen. We've played games in the past where you tried to sneak past the NPCs, and you had a little gauge over there to that showed you, if
whether or not they could see you
as you were kind of creeping along, you had to pause for a second to let the meter go down, so it didn't raise awareness. Kind of sounds like that, but to the nth degree, where NPCs are also going to start, instead of with games that you've played before, instead of the dumb NPC, like if you were shooting something in the distance, these NPCs are going to be attracted to those sounds and come actively looking for you. The idea of them, it says determining potential enemy hiding spots and keeping track of where NPCs had seen you last. So that kind of sounds like they're going to be looking around corners, behind objects.
Yes.
Looking for the little shadowy areas that you could possibly be hiding in. So, it's going to be harder to get away from, NPCs if the devs get them dialed in. That's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things kind of working together. Obviously, how much noise you make, and then they will look in hiding spots. They will be kind of aware of where blind spots are at and that type of thing, or where maybe behind some things are. So really cool stuff there. The next thing they mentioned is blocked out vaulting, mantling animations to give NPCs more locomotion options when moving around the environment.
Yeah, being able to crawl, being able to climb and crawl up on things. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see how that works out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and all this kind of has to do with, like we've talked about in the past, how the navigation meshes are, going to give, kind of free reign, and they're just going to have, depending on what their skill sets are, potentially, how comfortable they are in specific areas. They're going to be, as they move through the environment, they're going to have options. So last thing they mentioned here is AI now fully integrated with the ability to swap between ship modes. So that's kind of interesting. It sounds to me like they're getting really sharp about putting the ship in the missile operator mode or something along those lines.
Yep. Cool. There's a lot of giving the AI a lot of bit more functionality. You're talking, especially with giving NPCs more locomotion options, like right now, and also this could be part of too, being able to swap between combat modes in ships, and then also being able to, as it states right now, the way this first iteration of nav mesh works, NPCs are only, can only go down ramps. They can't climb ladders and things now. So,
Right.
but at some point they will be able to. So, a lot of this, being able to swap between, ship modes or things like that. So, at some point, think about this, at some point, some NPCs might be able to climb up in your ship and take off.
Wow, that's exactly right. I mean, that's an amazing thing, and then you do wonder if, like, if they kind of get out of range and they bubble out, are they going to disappear with your ship? Quanta.
Well, yeah, it's once they get out of
Stream
visual
out,
range,
yeah.
they're not. Yeah, they turn into Quanta. They're not.
That's funny. And then, of course, as you track them down, you might get into whatever probability volumes that you kind of pierce to kind of pick up their trail. You know what I mean? It's like, hey man, that's my ship. It's got my name on it, but that guy's flying it around.
Well, here's an interesting thought about that whole thing. Is there going to be a way that we can low jack our ships,
Now, that's
where we can put a tracker around those?
that would be fantastic if there was, right? I mean, you would think that absolutely would be a thing in the.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that we could track it on the Moby-Glass, where it's like, hey,
So if an AI
'cause
runs off with your ship, you can track them down pretty quick.
or a player character, some dude
yeah.
just randomly takes off with your stuff. So,
Oh yeah, that would be fun actually.
tracking those guys down.
So they mentioned some
taking
more
the-
AI tech. Yep. Yeah, jump down and vault. A locomotion refactor, improving how AI process movement, allowing things like actors, creatures, and NPCs driving a vehicle or pushing a trolley. So some fixes there. I thought this was cool. Fix several bugs related to slow reaction time, desyncs, and teleport. So, if the AIs, they're basically trying to tighten up the AI, how it deals with desync. That's an important thing because, that it's the one thing you notice very, very it's very in your face if you do a bunker mission and the server just doesn't have the resources or the mustard or whatever it is that kind of gets the AI going. I mean, they can definitely just stand there and be ragdolls while you mow them down. So.
Or they are standing there doing nothing, and they teleport and then shoot you from the back.
Yes, that is another thing.
which is basically how you get shot in these bunkers. Is like the NPC will teleport and somehow they've flanked you and shoot you from the side, and you're like, okay, how'd that happen? Or you unload in the direction of an NPC and he's no longer there. Yeah, once they start fixing that desync and the reaction times, because like you said, they could just be standing there and you just mow them all down, and so you start getting overconfident and you walk up onto them thinking that they're still staring at the wall and they turn around and shoot you. So being able to to kind of get everything synced up and
Both ends of the scale there,
so that way you interact with the NPCs a little bit different
Yeah.
than you do now. Sometimes you can get a little too out there and
Well, you can be really aggressive when they're not
around.
really.
You start walking around just shooting everything, and
Yep,
it kind of gets sideways sometimes.
it does. Moving on. Here is some stuff about art, and specific to ships. The Argo SRV is in gray box. I don't think that's a surprise.
We were talked about that. It's got 5 people still working on it.
Yeah. Unannounced ship moving to final art. So you know that there's something coming down the pipe for IAE, I would imagine.
Not the Centurion has been finalized.
Yeah, unannounced vehicle, not Centurion, has been finalized.
Yeah, they've been teasing this unannounced ship, several unannounced ships for a while. And, this particular one moving to final art, really interested in seeing what that is. This one that's been finalized, curious about it.
Yeah, there's some kind of a ground vehicle, so that's been finalized.
And then, they're just basically starting on
A variant.
a variant. Yeah. So they're on white box on a variant.
It's
They
interesting
said the
because
court-
if they say ship, they mean ship. If they say vehicle, they mean vehicle. If they say variant, you don't know, right? Because it could be another one of those ground-based vehicles based on kind of that ballista, Centurion, Spartan platform, or it could be, another, like a Cutlass Purple or something.
Yeah, a lot of people are kind of, we're talking about the progress tracker. A lot of people being probably kind of excited about this is that they're, finishing up on the Corsair. So they're out of gray box and into final art.
Yeah, that's gonna
So
be a good ship.
that guy is coming pretty soon because a lot of people have been chomping at the bit on that thing.
Yeah, another ship that may have a lot of application and I haven't really sat down and thought about it a ton, but may have a lot of application in Pyro.
Oh, absolutely. Before, until you start thinking about, and that's something that we're going to get into a lot more, is really going through all the different ships and giving our ideas on its practical application.
Yes.
So when you start thinking of things in those terms, then something like the Corsair really does. Before you just kind of took it for granted because it wasn't done yet. It just, it didn't get you excited because you knew it was, still being developed. And so we didn't think about it that much. Now that it's kind of in its completion phase and it should be in the game, pretty soon, now we can start thinking about all the different things we could, that ship could be used for. It looks like, we definitely know that it has, a lot of functionality. So it being, a lot more than, say, the Cutlass or, any of the other Drake ships that, has a lot of versatility.
Right.
So, yeah, we definitely need to do a deep dive on the Corsair.
Yes, we do. Well, the Hammerhead's getting a resource management pass, and I'm not exactly sure what a resource management pass is, but I can tell you the Hammerhead needs some love. I've been in it a bunch. It's a great ship, but man, it can get pretty sideways pretty quickly.
Well, the Hammerhead was also, it's been around for a little while, and along with some of these other ships that, they're some of these old ships that haven't been, touched in a long time, like the Connies and like the Starfarer and things like that. The Hammerhead is another one of those where I'd say a lot of it is, basically asset optimization, where it doesn't take that, a lot of the moving parts inside of it. Well, I think they need to, go back and optimize a lot of that where it doesn't eat up a lot of system resources.
That makes sense.
I think that's what they're referring to, in that context.
Well, moving on to the engine stuff, and this is pretty interesting. Now, the first couple Raybox overlap checks and SSE and AVX 2 improvements, I really think what they're talking about, just kind of looking into the bigger read, it really seems like a lot of this is making sure that they're rendering what they're supposed to be rendering and not rendering things that they're not supposed to be rendering, and trying to make it as optimized as possible. I think that's that's definitely a lot of paraphrasing there, but I really think that's the big ticket thing there. I thought this was interesting. Pulley support for rope entities. So, they obviously, as we talked about parkour, and there being kind of these, in the derelicts, there being traversal type puzzles and those types of things. You could imagine pulley and rope support for that, but also imagine the pulley and rope support for, say, loading cargo and that type of thing as well, for for the cargo refactor. I mean, pulleys are, it's an interesting thing that they probably hadn't spent a lot of time messing around with those things, but man, that is an ancient piece of tech that absolutely would still have purpose in the future. That is an amazing amount of time. Like pulleys, if you think about them, like I was, one day I really, really looked at the math and, and winches and pulleys. I mean, the math's incredible on those things, and they have infinite application.
Well, basically they're, calling it, rope entities, and really what they're saying is, anything that's rope-like cables, whether they're pulling cables or actually, cables that feed power to things, anything, or also the same thing would be hoses, is in that same, it has that same physics. You have a long object that's, bendable. So I think, I think they use the basic term for the physics and say, hey, well, this is rope. But, basically it's everything else too. So anytime that you pull a cable out of the wall on a ship and, can walk around with it and plug it into something else. Same thing with, fuel hoses or, plugging in the generators. It's like, at some point we're going to have, light assets where, you set the light down and you're going to have to, plug it into a port on a generator. So, you basically pick the cable up and, stick it in the port. So, a lot of that has it goes along with, with that rope physics. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. That makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the Gen 12 Mipmap Support, it really seems like, of course, they're continuing to just kind of offload atmospheric and volumetric cloud stuff, to the different, that's what Gen 12 is all about. It's about kind of utilizing all the different cores on your CPU, and offloading some of that stuff, to there, for rendering, so you kind of have, you don't have such a, you're not trying to put as much bandwidth through one core, and so, and of course, shader system improvements. I think we all could agree that that's something that we're probably going to see quite a bit of. Even you, Zel, I think we're saying that, when it comes to the shaders, that with the releases to 3.17.2, that you were seeing maybe just a touch more wash on shaders than you recalled in the past.
Yeah. We know that they've been kind of, adding little bits of Gen 12 as they went along, along with, updating, the graphic assets and things. So this is just the big push, because we know that a lot of it's supposed to be coming in 3.18 as well. So I think this is the big push to get a lot of these graphic engine backside things worked out. So when Gen 12 does come online and all the resource management is going to go more towards the video card instead of on the CPU, that's putting all these these new shaders back in place, because the way it's at now, a lot of people kind of took for granted that most of how everything was rendered was mostly on the CPU, and the CPU couldn't handle all these different shaders and stuff. So all these are going to be putting the onus on the video card instead of the CPU, so they get to add a lot more to it. So things are going to look, have a lot more fidelity in the next couple of patches than we've seen in the past. Now, getting the color saturation just right, we still kind of have to wait and see how that works out, because one of one of my big gripes is adding more vibrancy to the colors, where everything doesn't look as washed out. Right now, like we were talking about before, it seemed like a lot of things were looking a lot more washed out than they used to, and I think it's because they're kind of messing around with that right now. So
yeah. Cool. Well, a couple more things here. Render loading thread replaced by video rendering for UI. I think that's something you were basically just speaking to. Kind of atmosphere and cloud tech port work. I think that's just kind of part and parcel with the Gen 12 work we were discussing. And then it looks like go ahead.
Being able to, because a lot of the cloud work is based on tessellation, and having the video card calculate that tessellation where you have, more realistic looking cloud volumes, I'd say, and being able to add them to all the different planets. Like, we know Lyria, basically its cloud cover is that one plane. Once you go below the plane, it's kind of got a 2D effect, right? So when you see it, you see the volumization is kind of in a, it isn't rendered in the correct way. It kind of, the way they volumize it, it's kind of looks 2D, because once you go below the cloud line, you can actually see that the cloud is basically a plane, and it's, kind of trying to trick the eye. Same thing when you get below the cloud line and then look back up, it does the same deal. So these will allow all the clouds on these planets and moons that do have atmosphere to actually have those nice fluffy clouds that we all like to see.
Absolutely. And I mean, a big part of the engine work, and it really can't be overstated, is rendering what you should be seeing and not rendering what you should not be seeing. Because the cost in rendering things that you should not be seeing is astronomical. And when I say cost, I mean server resource cost. So a big part of this tech is really lent towards, and it's not just you, of course, it's all the other 100 players on the server, right? It's an important thing, just kind of, so every single time the server can determine that there's something that's out of your vision or out of everybody else's vision, and they can actually kind of, return the resources back to the pool, and not kind of hold it in memory. It's an enormous savings. So a big part of this engine work is based on, different flavors of doing that type of thing, as well as, improving the graphics. So
yeah, because, if you have multiple people in the same area, but you have some people a little bit further out than others, but it's still within field of view, all that stuff is still got to be rendered, so anything that they're seeing, you're seeing. And it's very resource intensive.
So, looks like Arena Commander's getting some feature improvements.
We spoke a little bit about that.
Yeah, and then they say, it's funny here, they say potentially using PU locations as environments. Well, with the Snake Pit, I would say that's more than, it sounds like they've kind of, maybe are a little further along with that than, and I like that idea. I think using some of the PU locations as environments is fantastic for Arena Commander, as well as an awesome training tool. Of course, scan, ping, and radar changes. That will be interesting to see what they mean by that for just what would be different about Arena Commander than, say, the PU, or maybe they're just talking about kind of, changing the tech in general. And there is going to, of course, be some improvements of those things. Bug fixes, they're talking about generically. And moving on to the features for characters and weapons. Extrapolation issue fixes. So, there, some fixes in place there. Laid the groundwork for more FPS devices. That's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a million little types of devices you can think of for FPS that would be really, really cool. Code-driven IK combined with hand placement feature. So I think that has to do more with taking these FPS devices and to kind of, when you hand place them, making sure that you have some of the back end tech there for that type of stuff is working correctly. Moving on to features and gameplay. Life support and engineering work. That's cool. I think that's a really, really cool thing.
And we saw a little bit about how they were setting up the UI. So, yeah, we should see that pretty soon.
Yeah. Hull A interactable resource relay points. What is
I guess that's
exactly
the connection points for the cargo boxes.
Oh, let's see. The power plant and fuel tanks now power the system using the new tech. Oh, that's interesting as well. All right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. They're kind of, we're talking about kind of like connecting some of the functionality, marrying the capability to the functionality, I guess, right? You gotta be able to power that stuff to get the power back there.
Well, yeah, that's their little, what they call their pipeline, where
exactly.
all those things are interconnected in those in that cabling system. So you got your life support, your power, everything running through those those different raceways and stuff on the ship. So yeah, that's cool to see.
Yeah,
that's another thing too, man. Kind of getting back to my point of what have they already worked out those connection points to, and I know it's probably not going to be in this iteration of the cargo refactor, but yeah, how's that going to work out with like the whole sea where you're adding cargo to that grid?
right.
I don't even know. Come to think of it, have we seen the cargo grid extended as it was landed? I don't think it can, right? So
no, I don't think so either. No, I don't know that we've seen. The cargo grids are something I've been very interested in, as far as seeing, a variety of different things around it. And I don't know that we've seen much. I'm expecting some of that stuff to kind of begin being shown here more in the next, say, 30 to 60 days.
Well, I guess one of the things, and we hadn't really spoken about this, but now that it's kind of come up to my mind, is that the door to the hull A looks more like a docking pod, or it looks more like a docking collar. So,
yeah.
With the whole series on, these different stations like Everest or, let's see, what's the other one Banji, where they have, those cargo centers. Is it going to be a situation where you dock outside the cargo center and, some sort of, big garage door opens up with a force field and you have to, use your gun to pull the boxes out and place them on the grid while the ship is docked there. That's the way I see it kind of working out.
Yeah, with the Snap 2 feature, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, have that kind of, that magnetic grid where you just kind of take your box and you stick it up on there and it.
Well, it gives you kind of like almost like the silhouette of it where you'd snap it on to the next spot and let it go, and then it sticks there.
Yep. So you lock all those boxes onto it, and then I guess you can lock them so far out, so many rows out, and then you go to the next.
It's going to be interesting if they develop some kind of a handheld device that maybe has 4 beams that come off of it, so you could grab like 4 boxes at once, or.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? For efficiency reasons.
Well, yeah, because it would, what is it? 60 SEU, so 60 little cargo boxes like that, or you know, also heard about with things like the raft. They're going to have those bigger cargo boxes,
Right.
where they're more like a shipping container than like the like the one SU cargo box.
Yeah, they have 32 SCU shipping boxes exactly. So
So
that's
you're
a really interesting point. UI work for temperature control. That's kind of cool. We understand what would be going on there. With kind of life support systems and temperature control, I'm sure would be, a big part of that. So here's one thing I think is cool: hull scraping, ammo, and repair stations. So kind of going back into the narrative more, it says hull scraping is progressing well, with the team focusing on creating the commodity boxes and repair ammunition at the dedicated filler station in the Reclaimer and the Vulture.
Yeah, so the repair ammo. So
Yeah, so instance like right when you atomize when you kind of strip a hull, it's making something, and that stuff something needs to be put into some kind of a commodity box, or and basically it is repair ammunition.
Yeah, so are these is that raw hull material? Does it need to be refined down, or is it whatever you stripped? Does it remain in your backpack, and then you just kind of instead of on your multi-tool or the repair gun, you're going to flick the switch and put it on repair and then use the same material? Or is it one of the things that's going to have to be refined into a different state where it actually becomes that ammo for the repair gun?
Yeah, I honestly believe, I can see it. I understand how it works in my mind with the FPS tool, right? You kind of you're hull stripping with, say, a pyro multi-tool or something along those lines, or a stripping tool, and it fills up a container, and then that same container plugs into the repair tool. But how it's going to work for the larger boxes and that type of thing is going to be very interesting. I would imagine for the repair ships, they're just going to have these kind of plug-in boxes, right? Like these SCU boxes that you kind of have to drop on a special grid so they can pull that material out of them.
Yeah.
Cool. Who knows how that's exactly going to work, but it's fun to think about. For sure. All right, moving on. We got a Gen 12. I think we spoke about a lot of this. This is the graphics, VFX programming, and Planet Tech. Gen 12 gas cloud port. We talked about that a little bit. Support for silhouettes. Different type, hair shader improvements, and then something that's kind of foreshadowing for, world and biome improved builder. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, with this. They say the Planet Tech team made improvements to the world and biome builder by moving mesh building to background jobs, substantially reducing stutterers in editor. There were also fixes for mismatching physics meshes on servers, as well as refactor of procedural entities, which improved planet loading time. 4-point Bezier curves were also added to river generation alongside general improvements to the river placement tool. Collision detection was added to the Rostar to prevent modules from being placed when they overlap within the geometry. So, yeah, just a lot of cool, little tech improvements to kind of make meshing and over the different biomes, work efficiently, and making sure the physics meshes are matching up. And man, that's got to be a tremendously difficult task, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, well, we are seeing that they are becoming more efficient on building the Planet Tech out. That is definitely awesome to hear that they're optimizing that where the planets don't use that the resources are lower on when they're building out these meshes. So
yeah, so moving on to the lighting, a lot of the stuff we've already heard before. Tech debt backlog work, new sand cave archetype, so the lighting in those the sand caves.
That's what I was saying in the earlier And,
Yep.
we're kind of doing this on the fly. But yeah, that's that image that you see in there is where it's showing a lot of the natural light coming through.
Yep. And it looks like there's a lighting pass in the 600i and MSR, kind of those hybrid, like kind of crash sites or, that type of thing. And then a full pass on Orson Racing Circuit. That's interesting that there's a lighting pass on that. I think that actually could help. I think that there's definitely were a few lighting areas on the Orson Racing Circuit that were, kind of weird. Narrative says new reclaimer and delivery missions. Hey. Pyro shops and economy design meeting. So that's cool. Mocap work, in-game branding review, published several newsletters, tales, and entries. So Narrative's been busy with a lot of pyro stuff and economy stuff, and then of course for the new reclaimer derelict missions and the new delivery missions, making sure that there's wherever there's needs narrative support. That's cool. And here's Montreal's been busy with improved entity graph service performance, bug fixes, phase 2 of the refactor ledger and wallet for in-game currency handling. Oh, that's going to be cool. So began phase 2 of the refactor, ledger, and wallet for in-game currency handling.
I wonder if that's
some kind of a player exchange type thing for cargo.
Yeah, kind of, like when you send people money.
Yeah, like almost like a variation of the refueling UI.
Right.
But more for kind of, hey, I mean, can I buy this cargo off you? Yeah, you sure can, type of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, this sounds like it plays into player trade.
Mm-hmm. Completed first refactor of new inventory system with support for persistent streaming. So the first refactor, and as they say, and here's the important word: completed. The first refactor of the new inventory system with support for persistent streaming. So that's actually huge. That one sentence alone is very important. Completed the first refactor of the new inventory system with support for persistent streaming. So, Montreal's been, everybody's been saying it. They've been doing a bang up job, and that's crazy that's already completed. So, maybe that's exactly why some of the entity streaming stuff is getting wrapped up, like you mentioned. So let's see here. Going on to live tools for Montreal, they said add a new way to log into Hex 3.0's Network Operations Center, or NOC, for managing roles and permissions, and conducting internal survey for NOC or NOC design and usage for feedback, adjustment, and improvement. I don't know about that one so much. As far as, I'd probably need to look into that one a little bit more. Let me look at this. Network Operations Center manages the different roles and permissions. Because the usability of the tool is crucial, a survey is currently open among its frequent users. The team has analyzed the feedback collected so far and is working on different solutions to improve the design and usability. The live tools team implemented a new way to log into Hex 3.0. So this must be some kind of maybe an internal tool they're using for some kind of for logging issues or something.
That's what it sounds like.
It does. It's a little that one I will admit, out of all the things we've ever read, that one's a bit of a mystery to me. And then there's a few more things here, right? The UI and VFX stuff. So continued Star Map UI overhaul. I mean, I'm sure. Yay! Yeah, so, exactly. Adjusted loadout systems for persistent streaming. Cool. Okay. That's all. Collab with art and lighting on modular sand cave locations.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, reduced repetition and pre-production on quantum travel visual overhaul. And they've mentioned that the quantum travel is going to kind of, in order, I think what they're trying to get rid of is, even with the best system, sometimes with the servers under strain, when you begin to kind of chug through quantum, you get that first kind of, I don't know, the frames kind of drop and it just kind of stutters. I bet you they're trying to take the stutter out of it, I'm sure.
That, and they're also adding more to it where traveling through quantum looks a little bit more exciting than it does right now. So
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a lot. I mean, we got through the roadmap roundup, we got through the progress tracker, and we got through the monthly report. Zel, how you feeling? You hanging in there?
Well, I hope we didn't put our listeners to sleep.
Well,
Because,
yeah.
our topic for tonight is going to be a fun listen, and I hope we didn't put everybody to sleep or tune out. So
It's a good point. It's a good point. And so, I wonder if, I mean, certainly because that was such a technical heavy thing, and we don't always need to do this. We certainly could table that for another time. I mean, we are, that is, or certainly for next week. I mean, it would just give us more time to extrapolate on it. What do you think? You want to do we want to plow ahead or?
nah, we'll table it
All right.
because it was kind of long and.
It was long, and so, at the very least, I think we should spend just a little bit of time just chatting it on the way out. So, Zel and I are really excited. I mean, Zel had this fantastic idea of what would be your dream system, and so, and I mean, kind of biomes, and kind of taking into account what you might enjoy to do in the game, taking into account, just. Like maybe what's your home base or your workshop, or there's all of us have those things, like maybe it's tattoo, like the way Tatooine or Hoth look, or maybe it's the way that Daymar looks, and when you're looking up at Crusader. I think there's some other fantastic space movies where you just see like two suns hanging in the sky, or you see just this unbelievable thing that the galaxy does, where it's just these super picturesque things. And so, Zel and I decided to give ourselves the liberty of just kind of designing what would be the coolest thing for ourselves. So, that's what we're going to be doing, I think, on the next episode. Some portion of that, is going to be that. And I don't think that, I will just to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure Zel and I realized that we were going to get the, when Wednesday hit today, we were going to get the roadmap roundup, we were going to get the progress tracker, and we were going to get the monthly report. And I think the last time we just did the monthly report, it almost lasted 3 hours. So it was a victory today, Sal.
It most definitely was. And if I tell you what, if you guys are still listening, you guys are the man, because those can get a little long. But it is definitely something that that we kind of need to discuss, and see where everything is going. One of the things I guess it's kind of like one of those things where we knew those things were coming up, but we forgot today was Wednesday. We kind of got it behind a little bit last week. And we're kind of playing catch up a little bit because we have other projects, in the pipeline right now.
Ooh, exciting news.
I've had my head down, working so hard that, like I said, it's one of those things you look up and go, oh, wow, it's Wednesday today. And all this new information was released. But I most definitely feel like, our little topic of what your dream planet, what would your dream planet look like? We should spend a little time on it because, going over, how much diversity your planet has and, what different biomes you would have on it. And I mean, even to the extent of, what that solar system would look like. Is it a dual sun, or does your planet have multiple moons? So you can see different multiple moons in the night sky, or how many planets does your solar system have? These are things that we're going to get into, and it's all about your imagination, and what would your dream planet look like? So we're going to get into that. I guess we're going to get into that next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I think it would. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, by the time we kind of got through a lot of this which we really, we really do pride ourselves on kind of getting through this and disseminating it for you folks and kind of chatting about it, but it kind of stole the thunder. So, here's the last thing I want to say for the night is tonight's conversation was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I will just, as I normally do, will defer to Zel. But everybody out there, thank you so much for all your support. It's absolutely fantastic, and cheers to you, and we'll see you around the way. Take it away, Zel.
All right, guys. Appreciate you tuning in and going through that. We're going to be a little bit next time around. I promise you, we'll be a little bit better prepared, and we're going to start going through that information, and we'll bullet point all the stuff that we feel like you guys would be more interested in. A lot of the tech stuff can kind of go over everybody's head, and so we'll get into that a little bit better. But guys, as always, appreciate you guys listening. Always enjoy the conversation. So if you like what we're doing, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. You hit that subscribe button. And we'll see you next week on another Rock Runners Report.